Elevator maintenance folks. What is the weirdest thing you have found at the bottom of the elevator chamber? I once accidentally lost my driver's license down the little gap in the elevator doors. Just dropped it and was super unlucky as it slipped through. It turned up in my mail 10 years later. Obviously long expired. But still crazy, some maintenance guy found it and bothered retuning it. Got pulled over once. Handed the PO my license and he dropped it in the crack where the window would have been. We looked at each other for a second. He says good luck and walked away. Edit. It took a few minutes to take a vent off the side and grab it with a wire and some tape. It could be a blessing depending on what you did. Driving without a license. Body in your trunk. Well over 1500 tax returns at the bottom of the Atto's North Brisbane office elevator shaft. Bloody hell. Were you sent there to retrieve them? Or did some drango just lose them and thought no one will find them anyway? Also, were they at ATX/MyGov printouts? Or the old paper submitted ones? This is going back quite a few years, when I think Atto employees were doing favors for people. At one time the system was so full of holes. Employees could do all sorts of things they shouldn't have without fear of being caught. Ah yes, the good old days. But only if you're riding with the good old boys. Rich enough not to pay taxes still happens. Those boys clubs are just a little more hidden nowadays. Worked at a hotel. Guest dropped their phone down the shaft. After a few failed retrieval efforts, we called the elevator guys. They went down, got the phone, and also found a carton of eggs. Rotten. But not cracked. I don't even understand how that could happen accidentally, because it was no accident. I work in tech now, but while I was in college I helped an HVAC guy and he once had me put a carton of fresh eggs in the duct of a client's office that had stiffed him before. When I asked him why I was doing this, he said if this motherfucker doesn't pay up, he's going to have a new issue. But then the guy paid 2 days later, and I was sent to retrieve the eggs. He called it his 99-cent insurance policy. But then the guy paid 2 days later, and I was sent to retrieve the eggs. He called it his 99-cent insurance policy. I'm picturing you standing up a ladder in a busy cubicle setting, removing a ceiling tile, then coming down with a dozen eggs, like it's business as usual. So that's where I left them. Welp. Sire. It was an outpatient behavioral health clinic but yeah, it basically went down like that. Conversation between patient and doctor. I saw a maintenance guy pull a dozen eggs out of your air duct. Doctor, oh yeah. 3 more months of sessions for this one. My dad was an elevator mechanic for about 15 years. He had a very dark sense of humor and would come home with some of the craziest stories. For example, anytime he was in an elevator, he would shake it a little or tap on the displays or buttons and go, yep, total piece of crap, inferior piece of crap, and I think he mostly did it to freak people out. One of my favorites, he got a call that someone was hearing weird noises from the elevator. He got inside, rode the elevator up, and sure enough, he could hear it too. For half a second he thought it was a baby crying and realized it was a cat. When he got to a certain floor, he could hear this sad meowing. It obviously wasn't in the elevator car, so he got into the shaft and found this little orange kitty. It had somehow, and I don't think he figured out or told us how, got into the elevator shaft and was sitting in a spot between the floors where it wouldn't get crushed by the elevator. But it couldn't get out. My dad saved it and gave it to the building manager to see if it belonged to anyone in the building. It was the one time he ever told us his story that involved him saving an animal instead of finding dead ones. And I don't think he figured out or told us how. Cats are made of liquid. And I'm pretty serious. They have a lot of floof and fit through cracks and crevices much smaller than you think should be possible. Cat in the wall. Now you're speaking my language. Probably flattened itself like a pancake and slid through a crack in the wall. It's true. Cats do not abide by our laws of physics. I've seen this before. Flattened itself out and went right through a seam in the wall. When this happens, it's best to insert another cat, which will lead the fist cat to safety. It's been proven to work by both science and astrology. Our team dropped a steel anal dilator down the dumbwaiter shaft by mistake. When the technician came down and grabbed it off the floor, I'll never forget the look on his face when I told him we need that up here, it's got to go in someone's as soon It was priceless. I'm a technician for a hospital. Dealing with rectal surgical tools is very normal. That poor dilator. It got away for a minute. Thought it was finally leaving that wretched life behind. Next thing it knows, it's lying at the bottom of a filthy dumbwaiter shaft. And just when it's starting to get used to that, thinking not much of a view, but a lot roomier than I'm used to, along comes the elevator tech, and it's back to the old day in, day out. It must have done something really bad in a previous life. I bet it was Roycon, Juan Paro, Toscanini, Dacron. My dad has a great story about this. He supervised the mechanics, and one of them called him from a mental hospital and said, "You've got to see this." The maintenance guy was called because the elevator wasn't quite sitting level on the ground floor. It was about half an inch too high and both patients and staff had been tripping on it. But all other floors were no problem. My dad arrived to find the maintenance guy cackling, looking into the bottom of the shaft. There were probably tens of thousands of magazines down there. They had to get a bunch of shovels, a small crew, and a rolling dumpster to clear it out. When it was all done, my dad decided to stay behind and pretend to read a newspaper while he sat in the lobby. After about half an hour, he sees an elderly patient holding a magazine, shuffling slowly toward the elevator. He stops in front of the doors, glances left, glances right, and quickly stoops down, slides the magazine into the gap, and shuffles away as fast as he can with a huge grin on his face. My dad could not help but laugh hysterically. This guy had probably been sliding magazines in there multiple times per day, every day, for decades. I should ask him whether he reported it or let the guy have his fun. Wouldn't surprise me if my dad went with the latter. 10,000 magazines? Wow, this guy sure must have had a lot of time. A ton of issues as well. The nerve of some people. It was all of us. Weekly. One time, we were doing a rip out at an old factory. They were gutting them and turning them into luxury apartments. The elevator we were taking out was a shitty old freight that hadn't run in years. When we finally ran it up, we went down to inspect the pit. It smelled like a dead body had chilled there for half a century. The bottom floor wasn't lit, so I shined my flashlight under the elevator and the whole floor started moving. Roaches. Nasty. Haven't really found anything fun though. I've cleaned out more pits than I could count to. I gave my mom a cheap ring I found. Found a pair of underwear at a hotel. Found a full packet at a courthouse of some lady's case transcribed. Oh, I was on a mod once, and one of the hoistway doors had an advertisement sticker for a tennis restringing service. Which was weird, because it was somewhere only an elevator guy should be able to reach. I called the number, but it was out of service. I found some cool graffiti from the 40s. That's about it. I worked on escalators for a year and a half. There was a lot more in those pits. I was taking home bent up quarters every day. There was lots of shoe bits, and I was always nervous of coming across used needles in certain units. When I read doing a rip out at an old factory, I was picturing a bunch of urban explorers gathered round the barn in the dark. Those days are long gone. They've all been turned into trendy studio apartments. It was pretty funny to see what a bunch of grumpy construction guys turned the one operational bathroom into. Disgusting. I refuse to believe a body can do what I saw and keep working. And now it's some hipster's bathroom. This question should be my jam. But unfortunately I've never found anything interesting. $2 coin once. A dime bag of some unknown drug. Plenty of syringes. Or sets of keys. It's mostly just people's junk mail and empty chip bags down there. I had a coworker who was opening a candy bar and dropped it down the shaft by accident. Hopefully the building's rats were able to enjoy it.